Ice screams under a weight. The ocean no longer forgives. Milo pressed his whiskers to the wind and felt it bite like teeth. "Where are you, Mama?" Milo said. "I can hear the ice cracking." A lead opened like a mouth and swallowed the moonlight. Lena surfaced once, a shadow, then the sheet closed with a groan. "Hold still," Eleanor said, "and listen for the breath, not the splash." Far off, Ragnar's pads thudded like drums over a hollow floor. The night smelled of salt, metal, and fear. "I am small," Milo said, "but I will not sink." A gull's cry snapped and fell into silence. The floe tilted, showing black water veined with silver. "Storm coming," Eleanor said, "and hunger walks before it." Milo pressed flat, heart hammering time with the breaking ice. The world narrowed to breath, paw, and a thin white line between living and not. The ice remembers every footstep and punishes every mistake. Milo felt the memory under him, a ledger kept in fractures and sighs. "I will cross," Milo said, "before the wind steals my breath." A swell rose beneath the floe and turned the world into a seesaw. Lena's scent threaded the air like a rope he could not grab. "Keep your chest low," Eleanor said. "Let the gust pass through you." Ragnar's shadow moved along a ridge like a clock hand. Time thinned with the ice, and the lead widened by slow hunger. The sky pressed down, heavy with a storm that had already chosen. "I hear her," Milo said, in the dark under the ice. The floe clicked, a tooth snapping shut, and the path became a whisper. The wind learned his name and tried to pull it away. "Not yet," Milo said. "You cannot have me yet." The floe shuddered and loosened like an old tooth. "Breathe in the quiet between gusts," Eleanor said, "and move only on the exhale." Far below, water licked the ice with cold patience. Lena's breath rose in his mind, warm as kelp and milk. Ragnar angled down, reading the map of weakness in every seam. The sky dimmed until edges blurred, and distance lied. "I will be smaller than fear," Milo said, "and flatter than the wind." The lead yawned wider, and the bridge thinned to a rumor no one could trust. Snow arrived like ash and erased the horizon. "Follow the sound," Eleanor said, "not the shape." The ice sang in 3 notes, and one was danger. Milo counted heartbeats and moved on the 4th. "Mama," Milo said, "hold the water open." The storm answered with a slap that rattled the ridges. Ragnar paused, testing air that carried milk and fear. The world became close, a room of salt, wind, and breath. "We are lines on a map made of cracks," Eleanor said. "Keep yours unbroken." Milo slid forward, and the bridge whispered that it could hold him once more. The storm opened one eye and let a bruise of light stain the ice. Milo saw a seam that ran toward a darker pool. "There," he said, "a door." The door breathed and then stilled. "Door's close," Eleanor said, "unless you arrive with courage." Ragnar shifted his weight, choosing a faster path. The bridge thickened for a heartbeat like mercy. "I am small," Milo said, "and quick when the world blinks." He slid, claws ticking like rain on glass. The pool quivered, and a shape moved below like a promise. The ice did not cheer, but it did not break. The storm settled into silence, leaving the floes scarred and trembling. Milo pressed close to Eleanor and felt her warmth seep into his skin like an old memory. "The night is heavier when the wind stops," Milo said. "I hear my heart louder than the sea." Lena's shadow flickered beneath the ice, her breath faint but steady, and Milo clung to it as a thread of hope. "You carry more than your body," Eleanor said. "You carry a story not yet written." Ragnar's scent prowled the air, sharp as rust and hunger, but he was distant for now, waiting. The ice shifted like a restless sleeper, warning them that stillness was only borrowed time. "Mama," Milo whispered, "I am here, but the ground forgets me." Above, the stars blinked between cracks in the storm's veil, cold witnesses to his vow. Eleanor tilted her muzzle skyward, her eyes glassy with memory, and the night closed around them, with the weight of a promise not easily kept. Morning bled pale and unforgiving, painting the world in gray. Milo stirred, his body stiff, but his eyes sharp with new hunger. "The day will not wait," Milo said, "and neither will the sea." Eleanor nudged him forward, her whiskers brushing his cheek like a mother who could not be. "Strength comes in steps," Eleanor said, "not leaps." The flow's edge was jagged, promising both safety and death with a single slip. Lena rose briefly, spraying brine into the chill air, her gaze locking on Milo as though urging him to remember. "I am learning," Milo said, "to walk where the cracks speak louder than silence." Ragnar prowled closer, his paws sinking the ridge, his breath curling into clouds. The horizon held no kindness, only endless blue and white pressed together. Eleanor braced herself, her body between Milo and the shadow, and the morning exhaled with a stillness that felt like warning. The flow drifted, carrying them into deeper waters where silence grew heavier. Milo slid low, his claws scraping frost as he moved inch by inch. "Every path breaks," Milo said, "but I will keep crawling." Eleanor's body shadowed his, a wall of memory and resolve, guiding without touch. Lena surfaced again, her back scarred and worn, eyes bright with a plea that could not be spoken. "The sea calls her," Eleanor said, "but it also carries her away." Ragnar stalked above, his frame swelling against the sky. A shadow stretched longer than truth. Milo pressed down, his breath clouding, his heart striking like a drum under thin ribs. "I will not fall," Milo said, "not while the world waits for me." The current cracked the ice, widening the seam, and the flow groaned like an old bone breaking. The day slipped further into dread, and every sound carried the promise of collapse. Snow returned in whispers, tiny flakes settling on fur and scars. Milo shook his head, the cold dripping down his whiskers like needles. "The sky wants me still," Milo said, "but I must move." Eleanor lowered her head, her eyes locked on the seam that wound like a serpent across their path. "Choose where the serpent is weakest," Eleanor said, "and it will not strike." Lena's dive sent ripples against the ice, her body fleeting like a ghost of what could be lost. Ragnar advanced one measured step, his breath misting against the blue wind. The flow shifted beneath Milo, and his body trembled but did not break. "I will crawl until the serpent ends," Milo said, "and then I will run." The storm muted the horizon, blurring shadow from safety, and the air grew dense with silence that waited to collapse. The day balanced on a breath, fragile as the line of ice. The ice opened to reveal a pool of black water, still and waiting. Milo froze, his reflection staring back with eyes too large for the world. "That face is mine," Milo said, "but it looks afraid." Eleanor pressed closer, her muzzle brushing his flank in silence, a reminder of strength through presence alone. Lena surfaced once more, her whiskers rimmed with frost, exhaling as if to mark the path. "Water remembers," Eleanor said, "and it remembers her." Ragnar shifted higher, circling, eyes fixed with hunger that gleamed. Milo lowered himself, sliding inch by inch toward the pool, every sound amplified like thunder. "I will drink the fear," Milo said, "and still move forward." The pool trembled, swallowing the light, and the flow cracked sharp, warning that time was narrowing. The moment tightened, holding them in a fragile balance between life, memory, and the endless pull of the sea. The current seized the flow and dragged it toward open water like a hooked fish. Milo flattened his belly and felt the world accelerate beneath him. "The sea is running," Milo said, "and it wants my feet." Eleanor scanned the horizon, measuring distances the way elders measure time. "Choose the seam that moves least," Eleanor said, "and stitch yourself to it." A boom rolled through the ice as a ridge collapsed somewhere unseen. Lena surfaced in the lead, her breath short, her eyes fierce with warning. Ragnar shifted to a lower ridge and began to parallel their drift. His paws landed with a rhythm that sounded like decisions being made. "I will not be chosen," Milo said. "I will choose." The flow spun slowly, and revealed a narrow tongue of ice like a lifeline. Wind rose sharp and cold, carving every breath into the shape of fear. The wind changed and carried the smell of fresh blood from far downwind. Ragnar lifted his head and turned, as if a map had been rewritten. "He is closer in his mind than his paws," Eleanor said. "Do not feed the thought." Milo slid to the tongue of ice and felt it bow like a thin reed. "Bend, not break," Milo said. "Bend and become the shape that holds." Lena's muzzle brushed the surface and tapped twice, a code as old as snow. The flow knocked a ridge and shuddered, spraying needles of ice that stung his eyes. Ragnar slowed, testing, reading, conserving heat and strength. The sky dimmed to pewter, and the sea darkened to iron. "We are between two hungers," Eleanor said. "The water and the bear." Milo locked his claws and fixed his gaze on the silent door of a breathing hole. A swell shouldered under the flow and split it into two frail halves. Milo rode the tilt and felt the line of safety snap to a thread. "Cross now," Eleanor said, "before the gap learns how wide it can be." He lunged and skidded, belly scraping snow that burned like salt. "I am smaller than the hole," Milo said, "which means I fit through fear." Lena rolled beneath him and kept pace, a silver shadow guiding his angle. Ragnar accelerated, reading the fracture as invitation. The gap widened and the water glared like a blade. Milo reached the second half and slapped it with both flippers, anchoring. "You move like a memory of ice," Eleanor said, "and memory is light." The sea hissed and tried to lift him away, but his weight became intention. The wind dropped without warning and left a silence that felt like a trap. Milo listened and heard only the soft click of new cracks forming. "Silence means the next sound will matter," Eleanor said. "Make it yours." He exhaled slowly and slid toward a thicker quilt of broken slabs. "Mama," Milo said, "I am following the cold threads you left." Lena surfaced again, releasing a tight breath that drifted like smoke. Ragnar vanished behind a ridge and reappeared closer with a measured patience. The sky brightened, turning the ice into a field of knives. Milo threaded the slabs and made his body long as a river. "When the world goes still," Eleanor said, "move like a thought." The silence ended with a crack that pointed at their hearts. The ridge ahead split and revealed a corridor of fast water. Milo halted, reading the speed, measuring the chance written in spray. "You cannot own the water," Eleanor said, "but you can borrow its direction." He waited for the smallest lull and set his chest to the run. "I am a line drawn by breath," Milo said, "and I will not smudge." Lena surged beneath, timing herself with his move, ready to lift him if he slipped. Ragnar broke onto their level, huge and near, a winter made of muscle. The corridor roared and then dipped, gifting him a heartbeat of mercy. Milo slid, claws ticking, body skimming the shine like a skipped stone. He landed on calmer ice and held still as the world caught up. The water took back its speed and slammed the door behind him. The sea betrayed its secret with a sudden stillness, and Milo felt the shift before he saw it. "Something waits," Milo said. "But it is not the bear." Eleanor lowered her head, nostrils flaring, her scars stiff with memory. Lena rose close, her breath ragged, carrying the taste of wounds unseen. "The hunter bleeds," Eleanor said, "and blood writes new stories." Ragnar hesitated, his paw held midair, eyes narrowing at the scent that curled like smoke. The world twisted, predator marked by his own survival fight, prey burdened with chance. Milo pressed closer to the edge, heart beating against truth. "He suffers," Milo said, "and yet he follows." The wind scattered snow like pages torn from a book, and the horizon revealed nothing but questions. The truth carried weight heavier than the storm. Ragnar bore wounds along his flank, fresh and deep. His steps faltered, but his stare never softened. "The shadow bleeds," Eleanor said, "yet still, it hunts." Milo's breath hitched, torn between fear and pity. "Why does he chase when the ice itself will finish him?" Milo asked, his voice a tremor. Lena circled below, her eyes lifting to meet his, urging him to see beyond hunger. Ragnar snarled, but his body sagged with pain, a beast locked in a war greater than prey. The ice sighed as if mourning them both. Survival does not choose, Eleanor said. It demands. Milo pressed lower, torn by a truth sharper than claws. The ice shifted its allegiance, groaning loud enough to drown breath. Milo felt the flow tilt, pushing him closer to Ragnar's shadow. The world drives us together, Eleanor said, not apart. Ragnar's gaze burned, not with triumph but with need. I see hunger and pain in the same eyes, Milo whispered, and I don't know which is stronger. Lena surged upward, sending ripples that fractured the bear's reflection into broken pieces. Ragnar roared, but the sound carried strain, a throat tightened by exhaustion. The flow cracked again, reminding them that none owned the ground. Every enemy carries a truth, Eleanor said. Sometimes it wounds more than teeth. Milo trembled, caught between hatred and recognition. Snow thickened again, blurring predator from prey, until only shapes moved in gray. Milo crawled forward, his claws scraping the ice into lines like writing. He is more broken than whole, Milo said, yet he does not stop. Eleanor's eyes dimmed with old memory, scars echoing scars. The strong fall as quickly as the weak, Eleanor said, but both leave lessons. Lena rose and tapped the surface twice, steady as a heartbeat. Ragnar slowed, his head drooping, his body dragging the storm with him. Is he enemy, or is he warning? Milo asked, his voice swallowed by snow. The ice held still, waiting for the question to split or vanish. The storm broke in sudden clarity, revealing Ragnar on his knees, breath ragged, blood staining the snow beneath him. Milo froze, the sight heavier than any roar. The hunter is hunted by his own body, Eleanor said, her voice quiet as cracks in ice. Lena circled tight, her presence restless as if urging Milo to witness. He is enemy, Milo whispered, but he is also brother to hunger. Ragnar's eyes lifted, glazed but unyielding, meeting Milo's stare across the broken white. The silence between them carried the weight of a truth older than prey or predator. Survival is not good or evil, Eleanor said. It is only the law. Milo pressed flat, the line between fear and empathy sharper than any blade. The horizon darkened again, reminding them that truth does not pause. The horizon thundered, and the ice broke loose in violent shudders. Milo clung low, his claws digging grooves into snow that vanished beneath him. The world is tearing itself apart, Milo said, his breath sharp as glass. Eleanor pressed her body close, eyes cutting across the widening fractures. This is the heart of survival, Eleanor said, and it does not wait for mercy. Ragnar staggered upright, wounds dripping, rage and hunger fused into one last push. Lena leapt higher, her slick back breaking the water, urging Milo to follow her rhythm. I am smaller than the storm, Milo said, but I am faster than its hands. The flow split again, roaring like thunder under their bellies. The air filled with snow and blood, and every breath carried the taste of the end. The chase ignited across the collapsing ice, predator and prey locked in one desperate rhythm. Ragnar lunged, his paws slamming shards into the air like weapons. He will not stop, Milo said, not until one of us falls. Eleanor surged ahead, guiding him toward thicker slabs. The path is sharp but strong, Eleanor said. Run while it still holds. Lena dove beneath, her trail of bubbles marking escape routes, invisible to eyes. The flow heaved, throwing Milo sideways, but he corrected with frantic flipper strokes. Ragnar closed distance, blood painting each stride, eyes burning through pain. I carry the weight of hunger, Milo said, and I will not surrender. The sky lowered, pressing down as though the storm itself wanted witness to the clash. A gap yawned wide, dark water roaring like a mouth ready to swallow them all. Milo launched forward, his body skimming the slick edge like a thrown stone. The hole is larger than me, Milo said, but my breath is longer than fear. Eleanor lunged after him, her scars straining against muscle. Ragnar followed, paws breaking ice, his leap carrying the weight of his dying storm. Lena surged beneath Milo, her back breaking water to guide his slide. The gap closed behind them with a crash, sealing the moment like fate itself. "You moved like wind across teeth," Eleanor said, breathless. And the teeth broke first. Milo trembled, alive. But the bear's shadow landed too close. Fight was not finished, only sharpened. The ice narrowed into a corridor where escape meant running into the bear's jaws. Milo froze, then lowered his body, muscles taut as bowstrings. "The path is his trap," Milo said, "but it is also my chance." Ragnar advanced, breath harsh, blood steaming against the cold. Eleanor slid to Milo's side, her body angled as shield and guide. "He is broken, but even broken claws can cut," Eleanor said. Lena splashed high, breaking the silence with urgency. Milo's heart hammered in rhythm with cracks snapping underfoot. "If the end waits here," Milo said, "I will meet it with teeth." Ragnar roared, a sound that tore the sky, and the corridor trembled under its weight. The climax tore itself from silence into chaos. Ragnar lunged, every wound forgotten, his bulk crashing forward. Milo slid, twisting beneath the spray, his claws scraping ice sparks. "I will not die here," Milo said, "not where the sea has not written my name." Eleanor shoved him with her flank, taking the bear's swipe across her scarred muzzle. Blood misted the air, but her body stood unbroken. Lena surged upward, slamming spray into Ragnar's face, blinding his strike for a heartbeat. Though cracked again, throwing them all into imbalance, predator and prey tumbling alike. "Survival is a storm," Eleanor said, voice low even as pain cut her. Milo screamed into the wind, a sound both defiance and birth. The world narrowed to one breath, one strike, and one chance left. Silence after the clash rang like a bell struck underwater. Shards settled, and Milo lay trembling, breath thin but stubborn. "I am not finished," Milo said, "even if the world is." Eleanor steadied herself, blood trailing from her muzzle, eyes grave. "Stand inside your breath," Eleanor said, "and let the storm pass through it." Lena circled tight below, tapping the surface with a rhythm steady as a heart. Ragnar wavered on the corridor's edge, a winter of muscle now shaking. He tried to rise and his shoulders failed. He lowered his head and watched them in a silence that weighed. The wind slackened, and the flows drifted apart like thoughts. "Mama," Milo said, "I felt your back under me when I crossed the teeth." The pool ahead darkened, then cleared, then darkened again. Eleanor turned to the seam that held and measured what remained. "We end as we began," Eleanor said, with breath, with ice, with choice. Ragnar coughed, a red bloom staining snow, and the sound was not a roar. Lena surfaced and exhaled a rope of air like a path. Milo pressed lower, ready to move, when the world gave even a finger's width. The bell of silence faded. The decision arrived. The corridor closed behind them as the current shifted, gentle as a door moved by a tired hand. Eleanor eased forward and pressed the seam with her chest. "We move now," Eleanor said, "while the world is willing." Milo slid after her, breath counting beats that space would allow. Ragnar stood apart, swaying, ribs rising like broken bellows. He watched not with fury, but with an arithmetic that knew its sum. "I do not hate you," Milo said, "but I will not be eaten." Lena cut circles and tapped twice, then 3 times, then stilled. The air carried iron and kelp, tallying the day. Snow began again, softer, resting on wounds and whiskers alike. Eleanor turned to Ragnar and dipped her head once. Her scars gleamed with melt before dulling in cold. Ragnar lowered his gaze, turning to the wind, his body speaking farewell without sound. Milo followed the taps toward a broader plate that did not groan beneath weight. "This holds," Eleanor said, her voice a kind of shelter. A long creak rolled under them, old but not yet final. Milo pressed close. The sea's door held open one breath longer. The flow widened, and offered a stage of silence heavy with choice. Eleanor slowed, her body sagging beneath scars that had carried too much. "I will show the way," Eleanor said, "even if I cannot follow." Milo pressed to her side, his breath fast, heart unwilling to hear the truth. "No," Milo said. "We move together." Lena surfaced sharply, scattering spray like tears. Ragnar sank lower, a monument crumbling into itself, his breath dragging the air thin. The wind dropped, leaving them inside a hush that judged without mercy. Eleanor tilted her muzzle, pressing Milo gently toward the seam that promised escape. "Every story must carry forward," Eleanor said. "Mine ends here." Milo cried into the cold, his voice cutting the silence. "I am small," Milo said, "but I will carry you in me." The ice cracked like a final verdict, and the world shifted toward inevitability. The sea groaned, and a slab gave way, forcing choice into motion. Eleanor pushed Milo forward with her flank, steady though her body quivered. "Go," Eleanor said. "Your story is not finished." Milo slid unwilling, his eyes wet with a grief too large for words. Lena rose beside him, guiding with arcs that glittered in pale light. Ragnar fell further, his body slumping, no longer hunter but shadow fading into snow. The air tasted of salt and endings, heavy as stone. Milo turned, trying to crawl back, but Eleanor fixed her eyes on him with a command older than storms. "Carry what I cannot," Eleanor said, "and do not stop." Her scars seemed to glow, lit by memory's fire. The flow broke again, swallowing her in spray. Milo cried into the widening dark, but the current shoved him onward, sealing her sacrifice inside the sea. The current carried Milo across the widening channel, his chest scraping ice that no longer felt like home. "I am here because she was there," Milo said, voice breaking with each word. Lena surfaced, circling, her eyes fierce, a living echo of loss and promise. Ragnar lay behind them, broken, his shadow dissolving into snow, a warning carved into silence. The sky split, casting faint light across water, dark as iron. Milo pressed low, his flippers trembling, but his gaze fixed ahead. "I am her breath," Milo said. "I am her scar carried forward." The flow steadied, as if the sea itself acknowledged sacrifice. Lena tapped once, marking a path that gleamed under fading light. Milo exhaled, steady at last, carrying grief as weight and shield. The horizon darkened again, but this time Milo slid without pause. The story did not end. It turned, carrying him into the next chapter of survival. The night returned, slow and merciless, swallowing the horizon in a silence deeper than storms. Milo pressed his body against the flow's edge, every breath louder than the sea beneath him. "I have no shield," Milo said, "but I still have breath." The stars stretched cold above, sharp as ice teeth, each one watching, none offering warmth. Eleanor's absence pressed heavier than Ragnar's shadow, a weight that bent the world. "Her scars are mine now," Milo whispered. "Her strength lives in my trembling." Lena surfaced close, her eyes fierce, urging him to look forward, not back. The ice drifted into waters wide and endless, carrying him away from the corridor of death and sacrifice. "This is not safety," Milo said. "This is only distance." The current tugged like a hand unseen, drawing him farther into unknown black. "Mama, I hear your song under the ice," Milo whispered, "and I will answer." His voice cracked the silence, and the sea replied with nothing but echo. The flow trembled again, as though remembering every life it had carried and lost. Milo lowered his head and pressed his whiskers to the snow, breathing grief into the frozen white. The sea whispered in tongues older than memory, each wave carrying fragments of voices. Milo lifted his head, his ears twitching, and for a breath he thought he heard Eleanor's call riding the current. "I am not alone," Milo said. "Her sound carries in me." Lena swam beside him, circling with steady rhythm, her presence a guardian against despair. Ragnar's shadow was gone, swallowed by snow and night, but his roar lingered in the marrow of memory, a reminder that survival's cost is written in every scar. He was the shadow, Milo said, but he was also the truth. The flow groaned beneath him, its cracks spreading in patterns like veins of a dying heart. Milo steadied his body, forcing breath into calm rhythm. "If the ice breaks, I will swim," Milo said, "and if the sea swallows, I will fight." His words trembled, but his eyes fixed forward, refusing collapse. Above, a gull circled once, its wings carving silence into sound. Milo followed it with his gaze, believing that flight could be a promise, even to one without wings. The current grew stronger, pulling the flow into open sea where ice thinned into fragile shards. Milo rose to his belly, body shivering. Every motion, a test of will. "This is the edge," Milo said, "where the ice ends and the story drowns." Lena surfaced ahead, her body silver against black, her eyes demanding courage. The wind cut sharp, carrying salt and silence, but not the weight of predators. "Danger does not sleep," Eleanor's memory whispered inside him, but neither does hope. Milo pressed forward, claws scratching shallow grooves that glowed faint with frost. He trembled, but each movement was its own vow. "I am small," Milo said, "but my path is larger than fear." The flow spun, tilting him closer to the water's black teeth. He pressed flat, choosing balance over panic. The stars above blurred as snow returned, drifting in quiet flakes that coated wounds and softened edges. "Every ending is a seed," Eleanor's voice echoed in his mind. Milo exhaled, his breath visible against the vast night, carrying her words forward like fire in coal. The horizon revealed a faint glow, a bruise of dawn creeping into night. Milo lifted his eyes and saw the light bleed across the water, a color that tasted like memory and promise. "The world is not done," Milo whispered. "It still opens its hands." Eleanor's voice echoed, softer now, like waves fading against a far shore. "Carry me," she had said, and Milo carried her in every breath. Lena rose into the glow, her body lit gold at the edges, a figure of survival burning in black sea. Milo pressed forward, his flippers aching, his chest raw, but his eyes sharpened. "I am her breath," Milo said. "I am her scar, and I will not vanish." The flow steadied, as though the light itself commanded stillness. The sea hushed, watching, bearing witness to something fragile yet unbroken. Milo exhaled long, a sound of defiance and mourning both. Above, the gull returned, its cry slicing through silence, carrying the echo further than words. The world ended in silence, and the world began again in echo. Milo stood alone on the flow's edge, smaller than the sea, but carrying more than himself. "I am her voice," Milo said. "I am her wound, I am her breath." Lena circled below, her body a shadow of loyalty, a line between death and endurance. The horizon bled full with dawn, gold spilling over black, a wound healed into fire. Milo pressed his chest to the ice, closed his eyes and exhaled. His cry rose thin and sharp, a sound that cut through sky and water, an echo of Eleanor, an echo of every scar that survives. The sea carried it outward, scattering it into the distance where no eyes could see but every silence could hear. Ragnar was gone, Eleanor was gone, but Milo endured, trembling yet unbroken. "This is not the end," Milo said. "It is the echo." The flow drifted on, smaller with each turn, but the cry lingered, long after sound should have died. The horizon swallowed it. The dawn carried it, and the world remembered.